Hello, my name is Becky McArthur, and I am so excited that you are here to watch this free webinar called Making Sense of How to Teach Kids to Read. So again, my name is Becky McArthur. I'm a speech and language pathologist who practices in Ontario, Canada, and I have been a speech and language pathologist since 2015. When I graduated from my master's level courses for speech pathology, I had no idea about how to support kids' reading and writing skills. And what I want to provide with you here today is what I wish I had at the beginning of my literacy learning journey. And I want to inspire and support you to start to take action to help the kids in your lives become stronger readers. Now, I remember being at the beginning of this journey and it feeling very overwhelming. And so I want you to know that to help kids, you do not need to know everything. You just need to get started with some really great information. And you have found it here in this webinar. And so I really hope that after you watch this webinar, you're feeling so much more empowered with great information and are inspired and excited to help support the kids that are in your lives to become stronger and more confident readers. So we're going to discuss where we are right now in general as far as literacy goes in especially North America, and also where we want to go. We'll discuss some foundational knowledge and some really important terminology to know. We'll discuss why kids are struggling to read so much. And last, we will talk about how to support your students to become stronger readers. So where are we right now with respect to teaching kids to read, especially in the school systems, and where do we want to go from here? Right now, by and large, the teachers and educators that I speak with feel very confused about how to teach kids to read. They're unsure of the right approaches or materials to have in their classrooms, and that leaves them feeling very unempowered and uninspired about how to do this in their classrooms. And this is shown in the statistics. So these statistics are from the 2021-2022 EQAO results, and the EQAO is the Education Quality and Accountability Office here in Ontario for really its standardized testing for kids. And so as of 2021-2022, it was revealed that 27% of children are not reading on grade level in grade 3, and 35% of children are not writing on grade level in grade 3. So teachers are feeling confused, and this is really reflected in how many children are struggling with their reading and their writing in our school systems today. Although these are Ontario figures, there's many figures that are very similar across Canada and the rest of North America. And where do we want to go? We want teachers to be empowered on how to teach kids to read and know the best types of approaches that are going to help the vast majority of students in their classrooms become stronger and more confident readers. The science isn't yet super clear on the small subset of people who may be unable to learn how to read, but we know it should be far less than 27%. Some researchers have estimated possibly that number is around 5%. So we should see about 95% of children in schools achieving grade level reading. So let's discuss some really foundational nuggets of knowledge, some really important terminology that you as an educator should know and can easily learn so that you are better equipped in knowing about the types of approaches that kids need for their literacy learning journey, but also so you can have these open and frank discussions with other people in your schools. So the first term we're going to talk about that gets thrown around a lot is science of reading, or SOR, as it's sometimes referred to. The science of reading is a large body of scientific evidence about reading, including one area that they study is how people learn to read. So the science of reading, being this big body of evidence, informs the practices that we use to teach kids how to read and also in order to remediate or intervene when a child is having difficulty learning how to read. It's really important to know that the science of reading is not a specific approach to teach reading, but it's this big body of evidence. And it comes from a vast and diverse set of backgrounds, including psychology, speech language pathology, cognitive science, neuroscience. All of these disciplines are informing the science of reading, this big body of evidence that we can pull from. Literacy is really our written language skills. So literacy are our skills in reading and our skills in writing or spelling. And in contrast to oral language abilities, which is our ability to speak and understand spoken language, oral language is really innate. Humans have done it for thousands and thousands of years, and our brains are wired at birth in order to learn spoken language or oral language. That is actually not the case for written language or our literacy skills. So we are not born with a brain that is ready to read and write. And so in order to truly teach a child to learn to read and to write, we actually have to create new pathways, neural pathways in the brain, and rewire multiple areas of our brain in order to be able to read and to write. So reading and writing is not something that naturally just happens in our brains. We have to be explicitly taught it, just sort of like math concepts, right? Our brain is not born knowing how to do addition or multiplication. We have to be taught it and practice it in order to learn it. And the same holds true for reading and writing, also known as our literacy skills. The next thing I want to share with you are two main but very different approaches to teaching children how to read. The first is called balanced literacy. And balanced literacy is an approach to teaching reading that is based on the central tenet that by repeatedly exposing children to books or to print, that they will just learn how to read. And so again, we know now that the brain has to rewire to learn how to read. So just exposing a child to reading and writing is not going to be enough to really make stronger and confident readers. And balanced literacy is an approach that is not supported by the research or by the science of reading, that big body of evidence that we have. On the other hand, we have an approach called structured literacy. And structured literacy is an approach to teaching reading that is based on the tenet that children's brains must be rewired to learn to read. And thus we have to directly teach children how to read and give them lots of opportunities to practice foundational skills in this area. And structured literacy is an approach that is supported by the research. Let's dive a little bit more into structured literacy and really what this approach is all about. So in the structured literacy approach, we rewire a person's brain to be a skilled reader by connecting three main skills: orthography, which are the letters that we see. And here in this example, those would be seeing the letters S, I, and T. So we need to have that in our skill set. We then connect that orthography or the written language to the phonology or the sound system. And so that is the sounds s, it. So being able to transform the letters to the sounds. Some people may call letters or letter combinations graphemes and the sounds phonemes, if you've heard those before. Last but not least, we then have to connect those sounds, it, sit, to the meaning of what that word means when we hear it. And so again, that could be sort of seeing a picture of someone sit in your mind and being able to extract the meaning from it. So in structured literacy, we provide opportunities for a child to connect the orthography or the letters to the phonology or the sound, to the semantics or the meaning of that word. Structured literacy is also really important because it has some basic tenets that we follow with respect to how we teach this process. So first and foremost is systematic teaching. And this means that we teach children skills in a specific order that builds on their previous knowledge. So scope is everything we're going to teach a child, and sequence is in what order do we teach it so we're building on previous knowledge. The second basic tenet is to incorporate explicit teaching. So this means teaching directly and explaining directly how various areas in literacy work. I've listed some here, which we'll go through right now, but we can't dive deeply into all of them in this webinar. So the first is alphabetic knowledge. We need to directly teach children how letters have a certain order, and also that letters are connected to sounds. This can be extended into phonics, which is really that connection between letter or letter combinations and sounds. So phonics helps us learn that A can say ah and A. Phonics also helps us learn that SH spells the sound sh. We also need to directly teach phonological and phonemic awareness, which is our brain's ability to perceive and then be able to manipulate sound. A quick note of clarification here is that phonological awareness is the ability to manipulate sound at any level, whether it's the word or the sentence level, whereas phonemic awareness is always at the sound level. We also need to directly teach morphology, which are small pieces that we can add to words in order to change the meaning. So for example, changing the word jump to jumping with ing. We also need to directly teach that orthography or the written letter component of reading, and also writing mechanics, which are sometimes referred to as language conventions. So we need to teach children about capitalization and punctuation and how we form a whole sentence when we're writing. And last but not least, we need to incorporate opportunity, lots of opportunity for practice, and also providing really great feedback for kids. So again, these basic tenets help us to connect the letters or the orthography to the phonology or the sound system, to the meaning or the semantics. And this can really be referred to as cracking the code. When we talk about kids who can read a word and really crack the code, we're talking about them being able to transform the word from what they see to what it means through this process. So we've now discussed sort of where we're at with respect to literacy and teaching kids to read and where we want to go from here. And we also now have a really great foundation for knowing some of this terminology like science of reading and literacy and oral language versus written language. And now we know all about structured literacy and really how we want to be approaching teaching children to learn to read. So if we have all of this information available to us, why are so many kids struggling to learn to read? Why is it that 27% of kids are not reading at grade level in grade 3 in Ontario? And again, many areas across Canada and North America will have very similar figures. Let's talk about this. So this is a really great conceptualization of the different children, really the different buckets of children and how they are learning how to read. And there is a lot going on in this diagram. So what I want to do is simplify it a little for you. So the green area of this are really children who are reading on grade level. They're children who are learning how to read pretty easily, even without a lot of this direct structured literacy instruction. The second group are children who are struggling readers and spellers. And this group of children really do need a structured literacy approach in order to become a very strong reader or a strong speller. So if they are only obtaining balanced literacy instruction, we often see these children as struggling readers or struggling spellers. And the small group of children at the bottom are a group of people who have truly brain differences that make it very challenging for their brain to learn to read and to write. One of these brain differences is called dyslexia. And these are children who absolutely require a structured literacy approach to become a stronger and more confident reader, and sometimes need extensive support in this area. So if we know that we have a group of children here who are reading on the grade level, why is it that really the majority of children here are more struggling readers and spellers and really having difficulty? And this issue is multifaceted, so it's not a quick and easy answer. One reason why so many kids are struggling is because graduate level courses for Teachers College are still not teaching the science of reading. Many programs are still sharing and spreading knowledge about balanced literacy focused recommendations. For example, making sure your classroom is language rich, encouraging parents to read to their children more at home, sharing about flashcards to help kids learn to read a lot of words and then testing them on those, and using leveled readers. So these are all things that many teachers are learning in their training and bringing into the classroom. However, they are not the best approach for us in supporting as many kids as possible to become stronger and more confident readers. And in addition, schools and school boards have spent a lot of money on balanced literacy programs and materials. So again, just like when I came out of my graduate level training and started to see my first literacy clients, I did what I saw happening and I used what I had available and what was given to me. And a lot of that was balanced literacy focus. So I will be the first to say that in my career journey, I have moved from that balanced literacy approach to a structured literacy approach. But as teachers, if what you have available are balanced literacy materials and programming, then a lot of times that's what we end up using. So although the problem really stems from way beyond your classroom with your students or your small groups, you can be a change agent in this movement towards more research-informed practices and increasing literacy rates across Ontario, Canada, and North America. One thing I do really want to be clear about is that we have this group of struggling readers and spellers. And again, if they were to get structured literacy in the classroom, possibly with a small amount of support, we would likely see them improve in their literacy skills greatly. What I want to be really clear about is this red group down at the bottom. This is that group that likely has brain differences that make learning to read and write very challenging. And so it's very possible that their needs could extend beyond what I've seen provided in the school system. So again, every little bit of structured literacy, of a structured literacy approach is going to benefit these children. However, know that if you see kids, if you start to use a structured literacy approach in your classroom and you still notice that there's a small number of children who are really having difficulty, it's likely possible that they will benefit from even added on or additional supports. Again, to crack this code of letters or orthography to phonology or sound to the meaning or the semantics. So how to start supporting your students as early as tomorrow. If you are already in the classroom watching this, you can definitely start incorporating these tips as soon as tomorrow in your classroom. So let's discuss my 3 top tips for you as educators. My first tip is to directly teach sounds. So if we look at teaching sounds and words from our 2 different approaches, a balanced literacy approach and a structured literacy approach, let's look at how they could be different. So in a balanced literacy approach, we often see encouragement for children to read words as a whole chunk. So they're shown the word can, and they're told it's the word can. They're shown the word jump, and they're told it's the word jump. This is not the best way to teach children to become stronger and more confident readers. So let's flip to a structured literacy approach, which again is the approach that is supported by the evidence. In a structured literacy approach, we encourage kids to learn words by breaking up that word into what sounds it is made of. So for example, in the word jump, we would teach a child that the parts of that word are j, p, jump. And they would learn how to crack that code and get all of those sounds together. So, zero shame. I'm going to give you some tips about how you can start doing this, but think about and reflect on your own classroom and try to think about which approach, the balanced literacy approach or the structured literacy approach, which one does your classroom look more like? And it's possible that there's a combination. And what I want you to feel after tonight is that you can start to move towards more of a structured literacy approach in your classroom. So some tips for teaching sounds. First and foremost, it's really important that children learn the difference between letters and sounds. And I like to incorporate gestures and icons as much as possible when teaching kids new concepts. So I often will tell children that letters are what we see, and I point to my eyes, and sounds are what we hear, and I point to my ears. Teaching them this difference to help them know that there is this connection between letters and sounds, but they are two distinct things. Letters are what we see, sounds are what we hear. You can also use the script when you're teaching the phonics or the connection between the letter or letter combination and the sounds of a letter spells a sound. So for example, M spells SH spells sh. So teaching that and using that script is really helpful. One thing to notice is to teach sounds without a big sound at the end. So rather than SH spells sh, we want SH spells sh. Instead of F spells f, we want F spells f. And the reason for this is because when children start to put these sounds together, it's much easier to blend them when they don't have this big sound on it. So for example, s, t is much easier to slide together than sa, ta. Masata. It just doesn't come together quite as well. So trying as much as possible to pull off that sound when you're teaching them. For some sounds, this is actually really challenging to do. So for example, D spells d, but just try to not have a big duh. Just clip it off. D spells d. Last but not least, we want to support kids to break up sounds when they're spelling and put those sounds or blend them together when they're reading. So for example, if we have a word like print, we might support a child when they're reading it to break up the sounds, p, I, n, t, print, and then blend them all together. And when they're going to spell that word, we're going to support them to break up those sounds as they then assign what can make that sound. So p, I, n, t, 5 sounds, and then we can figure out p, what spells p, what spells r, and so on and so forth. So again, there's no shame at all if your classroom right now looks more like a balanced literacy classroom of showing a child a word and having them just know it by sight. But here are some really great tips that you can start to incorporate as soon as tomorrow in your classroom in order to move towards more of a structured literacy approach. Tip number 2 is to directly teach syllables. So again, from a balanced literacy perspective, it generally encourages kids to look at pictures or like the context of a sentence, like what would make sense in order to guess at a new word, especially when that word is a big word, a multisyllabic or many syllable word. From a structured literacy perspective, which again is the research-informed approach to teach kids to read, we teach kids how syllables work so that they can read new and larger words. So an example here in this picture is like the word viruses. We can show a child how to break that word up into viruses, so that they are then more skilled at reading and spelling in the future that word. So a little bit of background on syllables, because when I started on this learning journey, this was all new to me. I really only knew about how to clap out syllables with a child. I didn't know really much about syllables. So a syllable is a word or a part of a word that has one vowel sound. That is why we can clap them out, like mung, the vowel is a, key, the vowel sound is e. Syllable types are actually the reason why the words not and note are pronounced differently. So they are a pretty rule-based or rule-governed type of concept that we can teach to children. And again, no shame at all. Reflect on your own classroom, reflect on your own teaching, and think about, does your teaching look more like having a child guess at a word, use a picture for a word, or even giving a child a word? Or do you find that you're able to teach children how to break up these larger words in order to read newer and bigger words? No shame at all, but let's talk about ways that we can move towards that more structured literacy approach. So how do you teach these syllable types? First and foremost, we need to teach children what a syllable is. Again, I was almost 30 when I found out what a syllable is. So we want kids to be much, much younger than that when they learn about what a syllable is. We want to teach them how to break up words into their syllables. So for example, viruses, we have virus-is. We also want to teach children how to take syllables that are separated and put them together. So if I give a child cat, pill, can they blend those together to get the word caterpillar? If I tell them monkey, can they put those together to get monkey? And to some people's shock and surprise, some children are not able to do this without a lot of practice. And so those are some great skills to work on in your classrooms. Again, for kids who have these foundational skills, they know what a syllable is, they can break up and blend together syllables. We can also layer in the reading and the spelling using those tools. So for example, in a word like fantastic, if a child goes to sound out that word one sound at a time, it's going to be very challenging for them to hold all the sounds in their mind in order to blend them together. So it's going to be very difficult if they hear and ast, ick, and then have to put them together to form fantastic. It's actually much easier if a child can break up that word into syllables as they read and go fan, tas, tick, and then blend them together to get fantastic. Last but not least about syllables is I want to share that there are 6 different kinds of syllables. We do not have time to go in depth on these today, but know that these 6 different types of syllables are really what governs what a vowel says in a word, which is a huge part of becoming a stronger and more skilled reader. So there are closed syllables, open syllables, magic E syllables, which are sometimes referred to as vowel consonant E or VCE syllables. There's bossy R syllables, sometimes referred to as R-controlled syllables. We have vowel team syllables and stable final syllables, sometimes referred to as consonant LE syllables. Again, these 6 syllable types dictate so much about what it means to be a stronger and skilled reader. And this is something that I teach the children that I work with every single day I see clients. So tip number 3 is to teach and encourage kids to use tips numbers 1 and 2. So teach children to think about sounds, to teach sounds directly, and also to teach about syllables and use syllables directly. So let's talk about 2 really common things that are done in schools: spelling tests and reading materials. And let's contrast whether they use a balanced literacy or structured literacy approach. So first, with spelling tests, In a balanced literacy approach, we generally see spelling test lists that are a random list of words that are really encouraging a child to memorize those words. In contrast, a structured literacy approach chooses words based on a certain sound or syllable type in order to give a child opportunity to practice and apply and get feedback on how they know about that sound or syllable type. Here's an example of a grade 1 spelling list. On the left, this pink sheet here, this is a grade 1 spelling test that was sent in from someone who follows us on Instagram, so a true grade 1 spelling test here in Ontario. And you can see that the list of words really do not follow any specific pattern. There's lots of different types of combinations of letters here. There's some words that don't really, you can't sound them out, so kids are going to have to memorize those ones. And you can see how this type of spelling list is really just going to encourage a child to truly memorize that word so that they can regurgitate it on a spelling test. On the flip side, the list under grade 1 is a spelling list that would be appropriate for grade 1s using a structured literacy approach. So we could have words, for example, like sat and fed, that both have 3 sounds in them and both have short vowel sounds. So the A is saying ah and the E is saying eh. We may, once we've taught these things, also incorporate something called consonant digraphs, which are 2 letters that make one sound. So TH makes th like in then, and SH makes sh like in wish. Again, these words only have 3 sounds in them. However, they have 4 letters because we've now incorporated these consonant digraphs. And last but not least in grade 3 is we may move up to having words that have 4 sounds in them, sometimes referred to as consonant blends because both consonants are making a sound, but you blend them together in a word like hunt or slip. So we have an NT blend or an SL blend. And last but not least on a grade 1 spelling test is a word like the. There's an asterisk here because this word breaks the rules. With respect to the type of syllable type it is, it should say the, but it says the. And so we have to directly teach a child that this word does not follow the rules. And there's a part of it that we just have to know off by heart, which is that E. Here's a grade 2 example. Again, another family with a child in grade 2 here in Ontario who sent us this spelling list that their child had. So again, you can see there's no real rhyme or reason to the types of words that are included here, possibly some words that have to do with things that they're learning about in their school curriculum, like oil and water, but many of these words that are just seen as common or frequent words. This type of list is going to encourage a child to simply memorize this list of words, whereas in the other list, we are thinking about skills and strategies that a child needs in order to start spelling more complex words in grade 2. And so using a structured literacy approach, we might start to incorporate words like snack and pitch that have special patterns like CK and TCH. We might incorporate words like tennis and submit that have more than one syllable in them, tennis, submit. And we might start to incorporate words, for example, of a magic E syllable type. So when that E is on the end of the word. And then again, last but not least, is to incorporate words that do not follow the rules. We can incorporate these on spelling tests, but we want to make sure we've directly taught children that these are words that do not follow the rules, and we figure out together what parts of the words we just need to know by heart, and then having children practice it in that way. So next up is reading and reading materials. And so a balanced literacy approach generally utilizes something called leveled readers. That may be something you're very familiar with. Whereas a structured literacy approach generally encourages the use of decodable readers for learning readers, so people who are learning how to read. Before I show you this example, I also just want to state that early on in my literacy learning journey, I had so many opportunities or situations where clients, either the children that I work with or their parents, would ask me, Like, how do you explain spelling this word? Or how would you teach them to read this word? And there were many times early on in my learning journey where I did not know the answer. And rather than using it as a moment to feel frustrated or like you're not skilled enough, that is a great opportunity to learn. I have learned so many different spelling rules and little tricks with reading because children and their family asked me about a word that they found in their own life and environment. So on the left here, we have a leveled reader that is generally assigned to children in grade 2. So we can see here in this text that there are many words a child is not going to have the skills to sound out or to be able to read. So there are some massive words like creatures and independence and Philadelphia. And so this text is going to encourage a child to either guess at words, they might skip words while they're reading, and really they're going to end up having an adult tell them what the word says, which doesn't help them learn how to skillfully read new words that are big, especially words that are big and multisyllabic or have many syllables. So again, leveled readers are generally used in a balanced literacy approach. Decodable readers, on the other hand, is like the second example on the right-hand side. Again, something that maybe a late grade 1, early grade 2 could participate with, but this text is decodable, meaning you're able to decode or sound it out or crack that code in that word based on the skills that you've been taught. So for example, children who are reading this book would need to know the alphabetic principle. So they'd need to know the whole alphabet and what sounds those letters make. And they would also start to need to know some things like CK, what sound that makes, and a few words that do not follow the rule, like the word the. Something that's really important to know is that decodable readers are not meant to be a forever type of material. They're more like training wheels when we're learning how to bike or going to hockey practice when you're learning skills. We want to give children these books because they provide opportunities where they can practice skills that they're learning, like what sounds the letters of the alphabet make, or what sounds consonant digraphs make, like SH and CH and TH and WH, or utilizing a magic E type of syllable. So it gives children the opportunity to practice at those things rather than having them guess at words. And so if you actually take out your cell phone and you open up the camera app, you can hover over this scan me sign. And if you click on the link that pops up, this will bring you to a really great website that has a long list of decodable readers. Some are free, some are for purchase, but they are all decodable readers, which are a really great option to bring into your classroom. Whether that's with possibly funding that you can utilize from your school, or again, using some of those free materials or very affordable materials that are available online through different types of websites. So again, you can go ahead and scan that. So here's where we have moved through for today. We talked about where we are now and where we want to go. Some foundational knowledge. We talked about why kids are struggling to learn to read and how you can support your students starting, like I said, if you're watching this in the classroom, as early as tomorrow. And I also want to share with you that below in the description, you'll find some resources and links to resources that you can incorporate because you shared and spent some time with us here today. If you are feeling inspired to continue your literacy learning journey and you want this to just be the beginning, I do want to share with you about an 8-module course for teachers and educators that I have available called How to Teach Kids to Decode. This is an online and on-demand course for you as educators, which means you can do it wherever and whenever is convenient for you, and you can fit it into your schedule. So you will get 8 modules of content, which are instructed by me. Again, I have been practicing as a speech language pathologist since 2015. And for nearly the past 5 years, my personal practice has focused almost solely on literacy. And so I am absolutely super passionate about learning and spreading this knowledge to other people in the area of literacy. So you will learn about the 6 different types of syllables that we talked about, that big list of closed, open, magic E, bossy R, vowel teams, and stable final syllables. You're going to learn what they are, how the heck you can teach them, and how they make kids stronger readers. You'll learn about phonological and phonemic awareness, which is the skill that makes teaching sounds and syllables actually worth it. So there is a group of children who you can teach sounds and syllables all you want, but their brain does not yet have all the skills they need in order to put those things together. You'll also learn about how to teach words that do not follow the rules. So those words like we talked about, like the and yours. And you'll also get some of my recommendations for really common things in your classrooms, like spelling tests, classroom books, read alouds, and so much more. You will also get, in addition to the whole course, you will receive materials that you can use in your classroom or small group sessions. And again, this is all online and all on demand, so you can move through it as quickly or as slowly as you like, wherever it works for you. So if you're thinking about if this course is for you, I really think this course is for you if you support young children, so kindergarten to about grade 3, in their journey to learn to read. So this can include teachers, resource teachers, or learning resource teachers who do small group sessions, tutors, parents, and so much more. So if you view yourself as an educator and someone teaching children to read, this course absolutely is for you. If you are a trailblazing educator who's committed to learning for your students, absolutely you have found an incredible place. And truly, if you want to be empowered about how to help the kids in your classroom, small group session, or your home to become stronger readers using a research-based approach, then absolutely this is an incredible, incredible opportunity to expand and extend your learning. The How to Teach Kids to Decode course is $99.99, and you can register for the course and begin it as soon as you like using the link in the description. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming and learning here with me today. Again, I so appreciate the time that you're taking in order to start to learn or continue your learning about the best approaches to teach children how to become stronger and more confident readers. I truly think educators are a key in order to making big impact on children's reading and the literacy rates in our country. And so I so appreciate you taking the time to learn here with me today. Last but not least, in this presentation, I will share the references from the presentation, and I hope you all have an incredible day. Here is to more children becoming stronger and more confident readers and doing that together.